I found it appalling to watch Planned Parenthood personnel again and again and again offer to provide and facilitate abortions for hypothetical sex trafficking victims as young as 13. I ask members to read this book, Unplanned, and realize the scandal of the killing of these unborn children and calling it choice.
Everyone in the conservative media is losing their fucking minds because this got released. They did this in this exact way because they knew it couldn't be countered.
And the time has come to end all taxpayer funding for Planned Parenthood.
That worldview, that way of thinking, that philosophical understanding, it makes them sick and wrong and in some cases evil.
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah.
It's not just going to be coat hanger abortions. It's going to be massive hunger. It's going to be huge amounts of issues, especially as climate change comes in.
Anyone that needed any kind of medical care gets f***ed with this stuff, right? There's a whole bunch of things that go into pregnancy that will also get f***ed with this.
And you're gonna lash out at someone, a sex worker, someone who's directly f***ing impacted by this? Are you on crack? Hi everyone, how are you? So unfortunately we're probably a bit behind right now because we stream once a week unless we can do more, and a lot has happened. And I'm just gonna get into it because it fucking sucks.
Content warnings, this is the segment about abortion rights.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is the exclusive Politico did. Supreme Court has voted to overturn abortion rights, draft opinion shows. So you're probably all aware of this by now. Not going to stay on it too long. But essentially, Politico was leaked a document that essentially showed that a majority opinion drafted by Justice Alito shows that they are planning to repeal Roe versus Wade over some of the dumbest reasons possible. Judge Alito has basically dug back and said, well, law of the 1600s doesn't say this is okay, so that's fine. Again, back from the times when people, burned people at the stake. There have been ongoing protests. There have been walls erected around the Supreme Court building because this is a direct slap in the face of every womb-having person on the in the United States. Full stop. If you're a trans man, if you're a cis woman, if you're AFAB, the fact of the matter is this is actively an attack on you. It is a desire to shove you back into some role, either to make you terrified of ever getting pregnant, or to force you back into gender roles that the right thinks are important. And the thing here is that the reason they are doing this is because they are cruel. I've heard a couple people say this already on different streams, and I want to make it very abundantly clear. At least from our perspective, I am not a big fan of the idea of ontological evil. That is, I don't like the idea of believing that even the GOP is ontologically, that is, at a being level evil. Because I think that talks about being evil at a cellular level. These people, due to their material conditions, have chosen to engage in very real violence. Very, very real harm. I'm not saying what they're doing isn't evil. It is. So those memes floating around about how I wake up knowing that my enemies are ontologically evil and anything I do to them is justified, I'm saying that when someone passes the immoral event horizon, I would agree with this except for the ontological part. Because I believe in free will. I believe in choice. These people are choosing to engage in harm. To assume that they would be ontologically so means they could do no other. I dislike determinism because it essentially assumes that a person can't be held accountable for their actions. I don't think the GOP are ontologically evil. I think they're morally and ethically repugnant. I think they're engaging in a massive amount of harm because they hate minorities. They hate women. They hate trans people. They hate people of color. They want to force women back into the kitchen, back into long-term monogamous relationships that will harm them. And I would assume that this is not going to stop here.
I get the sense that, right now we need a reframing of evil, because in a lot of our storybooks, right, a lot of the fairy tales that you probably grew up on, you know, a lot of the Disney movies or any kind of movie really, right, there was this clear-cut line of, you know, somebody doing bad things for just because they are bad. All right? Or like, hey, there's reasons for them being bad, right? We love those narratives. We love those things. But as far as dealing with this in real life on a societal level, the evil comes in like those massive changes that does harm to people. Does that mean that like they have never complimented somebody and made somebody feel good in their life? No. But are they absolutely doing harm on a very large scale? Yes. And also, when we're using evil, I want to be careful not to be careful, because we're generally talking about like politicians in power who have, you know, power and money and stuff backing them, okay? Allowing for that especially greater evil. And that's not quite the same as when you're trying to deal with like the day-to-day neighbor, okay? You know, who's just kind of crappy about things or doesn't really get abortion at all. So I think you kind of understanding that we need a big reframing of what this is.
Yeah, so I'll put this forth as just a thing. There was a game I used to like that goes right up there with Vampire the Masquerade. It was called Demon the Fallen, where essentially the walls of hell broke open and demons were freed back into the world and essentially took over human bodies again. And there's a really good discussion about morality when one of the demons inside the body of a young man is talking to that body's father. And what he says is, if a dog bites someone, is that dog evil? And the guy goes, no. Well, why not? Because the dog's just going by its nature. It feels afraid, it acts. It's a bad dog, not a evil dog. The way that defined evil for me was actually really solid, is that evil by definition requires volition. As someone said in chat, the GOP tomorrow could wake up and stop this. They don't. Calling them ontologically evil, sharing those fucking memes, is doing nothing but giving them a pass. Because you're essentially saying they are so evil at some level that there's no way they could do different. Sure, that lets you justify some sort of harm in Minecraft. But I think it's important that when we're talking about this, we don't want to subtly... we don't want to engage in the same belief structures that fascists do.
I gotta shut the window.
Sure. A good example of this is one of the things in Echo's characteristics. Was recently going over those for another thing we're planning. The fact of the matter is that fascists tend to view the enemy as both strong and weak. We need to be careful to not do the same thing to the GOP, because liberals did this, again, allowed for fascism, and this is exactly what happened. When you act like the GOP, the GOP is not going to make conscious of it. They literally just said they wanted to. Oh, they're not going to overturn Roe. They literally just did. Oh, they're not going to get rid of interracial marriage. They've literally said they want to.
Yeah, same deal. If you keep if you keep thinking that they're just dumb and dumb as can possibly be, and there are some ways, sure, but also they're actually accomplishing things, so you can't be that dumb. We run into problems.
So I guess the angle I want to come at this from is you've already heard other streamers talk about this, right? I doubt many people have waited for our sound off on this. But I want you to think about the way you see other lefties and libs talk about the GOP. They talk about them as they're these idiotic blowhards who could never get anything right. But you're forgetting, fascism doesn't need facts. Also, and I have to be abundantly clear about this, yeah, the GOP are not orcs. And let's be really clear about this. Why are the GOP doing this? I said earlier because the goal is cruelty. But why is that? It is because their worldview is pathological. What I mean by that is this stream has always held to this notion that conservatism as an ideology is inherently pathological because it does harm to others and themselves. People who are vote conservative, people who voted for Trump, have actively done harm to themselves. If we use this in any other context, like cutting or some other type of thing, by definition, we would look at this as pathology. We would look at this as something to hospitalize someone over. These people believe in a worldview no different than incels that harms them. We've seen incels. Check out Natalie's incel video. Incels believe in a worldview where they will never get women, they will never feel the warmth of a vagina, and as such, they must lie down and rot. But that's the problem. That worldview, that way of thinking, that philosophical understanding fucks them. It makes them sick and wrong, and in some cases evil, the ones that act out and go on shooting sprees. The same thing's true with the GOP. There are many people who are conservatives that this doesn't go down that level, but they still, because of their one fucking thing they vote for, still vote for people who are demonstrably doing evil. Even if they are not ontologically evil, their actions are evil because they believe in a world where if you are not a cis het white man, you don't matter. And they've indoctrinated their own women so much so, which is the most horrifying thing about it. The major push for pro-life in the conservative movement is the women. I honestly think it's a reaction to existentialism. I literally think these women can't think of a world where they aren't being subjugated. So what do? They subjugate themselves. Oh, can't do freedom. Got to get these chains back on. We cannot do what fascists do and assume that our enemy is both strong and weak. They are strong. They have power. They have endless resources. They are empowered not by reasoning and not by logic. They are empowered by feeling and intuition. They intuitively think trans people are bad. They emotionally think that we're going to harm their kids or harm whatever fucking issue du jour it is.
Let me know when we want to
Go ahead.
look at chat, actually. There's been a little bit of...
And we can go back to chat in a second.
The thing to notice is that, again, with ontological... Do you have a dictionary definition for people who aren't familiar with that?
Sure.
Because that is quite the word.
Ontology is the study of being. We covered this in my undergrad. Ontology is a branch of study that talks about concepts such as existence, being, becoming, reality.
So, like, in D&D, there were just creatures that were evil. That was it. That was just an axis that you could be, right? That's just part of your being. Mm-hmm. This whole race in D&D is evil. All right. The thing I want to keep pushing on, though, is notice that we're talking about evil as actions, right? As behaviors, not as the entire person is this thing. I really do caution people because, yes, a lot of these conservatives are, as the way just describes. However, trying to go into your day-to-day life and deal with your neighbor, the person at the grocery store, and looking at them as ontologically evil or just not human either doesn't help us. Those are the kind of situations where, no, it's really easy to get reactive. It's really easy to not really navigate or to cut yourself out of situations where you could potentially bring that person over to your side, right? If you've got the opportunity where somebody's, maybe talking to the right person enough can kind of, bring them over and you've got the opportunity, cool. Right? But if you constantly approach that from a place of, well, this isn't a person, so I can take out my rage here and I'm angry and hurt, so I'm just going to be reactive because I'm not looking at that as another person next to me at the grocery store. No, we're going to run into problems. Right? I don't even know where my phone's at. It's going off.
Do you want to go find it?
Yeah. And so I think this stuff is really hard to hold, especially with how much like the GOP politicians are doing in power right now.
Go find your phone.
Oh, I found it. This was easy.
Oh, beautiful. So I guess I want to add to this and say that, again, like I see people doing this back and forth. I don't like the orc analogy. I don't like any of this other nonsense. I think that we do ourselves a disservice when we look at them as anything but what they are. They are our political enemies. Mm-hmm. But they have power in ways that we don't. Because we have to make arguments. We have to use facts. We have to use empiricism. They don't. They get to make feeling-based arguments. People feel like LGBT people are weird, so they act on that and they make them afraid of us. I'm not justifying it, and I'm certainly not saying that this should make you hesitate in any way, shape, or form in any given situation. But what I want you to do is not underestimate them, because no one really saw this coming. There's everybody going, well, we knew they were going to do this. And, we knew they've been sort of poking at the law to see what happens. But let's be honest. They did this in this exact way because they wanted to. They did this in this exact way because they knew it couldn't be countered. That's why it had to be so secretive. It's why everyone in the conservative media is losing their fucking minds because this got released, potentially by a conservative. Right? And I've got links here that show things like, for example, for some GOP, contraceptive restrictions are off the table. I'll make sure these are in links. But yeah, these people literally want to get rid of condoms in some cases, or IUDs, or things like that. This is not and never has been about abortion. This is about harming AFAB people. Full stop. And not just AFAB people. We need to be clear. The right to privacy, again, I'm not a legal scholar. Well, it's not just punishing women. It's punishing any AFAB person. And also, to make it very clear, to enforce their will out of cruelty. Their worldview is that this is okay to do. Yeah, you literally just marginalized yourself, Jason, here. Good work. Congratulations, you played yourself. This is, by its nature, abhorrent. In my personal opinion, these are human rights crimes. You are taking...
I've been on that boat for a while.
Yeah, this is utterly taking away people's rights to such a degree as it is going to do immeasurable harm. If they get rid of condoms, we are going to see AIDS come back. Despite the fact that we have really good, medications and things like that, the reality is that we are going to see AIDS come back. Because most likely, we are going to have issues with the safe sex thing of it, and because insurance and because the lack of actual universal health care here, not everyone can afford the actual antiviral cocktail to be safe.
Well, and this is probably going to mean that anyone, without enough income are also going to be disproportionately affected, because guess what? It's going to be harder for you to afford the treatments.
Yep. This also, again, can lead to them getting rid of interracial marriage. And I'm actually going to throw out another possibility of what this could lead to. They're coming for gay marriage. It's even talked about by Alito. He talks about specifically the case that led to this, Oberfell and Hodges 2015, which is what led to the idea that two people can marry each other regardless of gender based on precedents. But this is the thing. This Supreme Court doesn't care about precedents. They don't care about the rule of law. They care about political power. Something the Dems refuse to acknowledge. These people are our enemies. They want nothing but harm for you and those you care for. And I do not mean this in a let's get super freaked out and let's just, completely lose our minds. I mean this in a we can look at their behavior and see the effects this has. Right now, if the Dems wanted to push on this and make this a massive platform issue, not to mention just, again, forgive student loans, they would have the midterms down. But they're too big of fucking cowards. But I actually want to point out another thing here that no one has talked about. I am not a legal scholar, so I can't say, and again, all these links will be in our document. I don't mean to scare anybody. Why do you think they're doing all the anti-trans laws? Do we have any evidence that they're not trying to do the exact same thing they did with Roe v. Wade? Poke at it until they can find every possible loophole, every possible way to restrict it, until they can eventually come for it and destroy it. Because my belief is that if they wanted to, we may see actually at a national level one of these anti-trans bills get argued in front of the court, and you may see it be that trans kids can never transition in the United States. You also may see it go so far as some of these laws that are attempting to do this with also adults, you may see it become illegal or at least not constitutionally protected to be trans, which could have huge ramifications on the laws that other states have done. Now, again, I'm not a legal scholar. I'm not a lawyer. Legal knows this stuff better than I do.
I'm not a lawyer either, but it already is kind of dicey. It has been for a long time trying to exist as a queer person in both, terms of housing, depending on where you're at, or in the workplace. There's still workplace and housing discrimination that happens. Okay? These things do affect people's day-to-day lives.
The reality is that right now, the GOP is trying to, through every measure, every cheat, every way they can, trying to destroy every facet of liberal democracy. Now, I hear you, fuck libs, whatever. But again, socialism requires starting with liberalism. You cannot build a socialist world without liberal ideologies underlying them. And that means you must be always on guard for fascism. Always. It is never just about us versus libs. It is libs being dumb and naive, sitting there because they don't ever see the threat. And it's made worse by red fascists, dumbasses like Lily who decide to use the word fascist when they feel like it, and any other idiot out there in the online left or lib space that decides to randomly use fascist instead of directly show it. Every time I brought up fascism here, every time Zena has, guess what? I always refer back to Echo. Why? Because Echo is the most solid criteria for this pathology. If I could stick his fucking essay as a criteria for a mental illness in the DSM-5, I would. I need everyone to understand this. This is not a fucking drill. If there are protests going on in your area, you should join them if you're able to. If you're safe, healthy, you have a mask, do so. If you are able to donate, there will be a link in the description for donation. If I can find the one I had. Unfortunately, I lost a bunch of my links when we had to restart the computer. This stuff is fucking scary, and you guys are allowed to be scared.
Don't be afraid to talk about it. That's the other one, right? If you've got health professionals and this is a concern, no, bring it up with them too. Talk with them. Make it clear to all the professionals that you work with that this is an issue, right? Local elections are coming up.
Go vote. Now, again, we're not libs. We're not saying electoralism is the only thing that does it. Direct action, mutual aid, and electoralism.
This is currently the system that is in place that we do need to utilize, though. Okay? Voting is not the only thing you do, obviously, but yeah.
And I also want to be really clear. If you're able to, I'm going to be a really big bitch about this. I'm sorry. All right, this is gloves off. If anyone in your life, I don't care if they're friend, family, fungus, I don't give a shit. If they're supporting this, if they think this is actually okay, you have my permission to disown them. Cut them the fuck out of your life. I normally do not push on that button, but if someone is going to believe that this is going to do anything but cause massive harm to children, to women, we already have child poverty in this country. We already have child hunger. You want to add more kids? What about the hundreds of thousands of kids that are in the foster system? And we want to have a resource, a deposit, what'd she call it? Like a deposit or something? Amy Coney Barrett thinks we need more fucking babies because this bitch can't keep her legs closed because her God must put something in there. I don't fucking care. I don't give a shit if these people in any way, shape, or form try to make an argument. This is harm. This is going to push more people into poverty. In some ways, this is going to be directly used as a means by which to fuck over POC because, especially black women, use this more. Trans people, gay marriage, all of these things they are coming for. If I don't give a shit if your dad, your mom, I don't give a if your goddamn stupid uncle talks about how, this will finally do it. No. Get away from them as quickly as possible. I'm not advocating violence. I'm not advocating you do anything mean. I'm just simply saying get away from them. Because in my personal opinion, that person is a danger to themselves and others if they can somehow mentally justify one of the greatest atrocities of the 21st century. Because that's what this will be if this goes through. It's not just going to be coat hanger abortions. It's going to be massive hunger. It's going to be huge amounts of issues, especially as climate change comes in.
Well, and this absolutely fucks everyone. Okay? Because the other thing that we forget is that abortion's not just this big magical thing. There are other things in the medical realm that are defined as an abortion. It's a medical process. Dr. Jones has stuff that has a whole video about it, right? No, this will hurt everyone in the like everyone around it too. Okay, it's not just abortions. Anyone that needed any kind of medical care gets fucked with this stuff, right? There's a whole bunch of things that go into pregnancy that will also get fucked with this.
Yeah, I have a little add-on I want to throw on there, and I'm going to be really mean about it. I'm sorry. I saw something happen today. I'm not going to call the people in question, but I'm going to call this out. I saw something happen today where Merrick had said, you know, right now what it's like to be a woman or AFAB in the United States, and it was the picture of Ralph from The Simpsons saying, "I'm in danger." It's a good meme. It's funny. And I saw a trans woman sharing this and going, but this doesn't mention trans women. Well, first off, it mentioned women, so it immediately does. Second off, Merrick is literally friends with a trans woman, has been nothing but kind to us. Mm-hmm. This is bad faith. Can we please let other people, let people deal with this how they're going to deal with it without immediately rushing to attacking one another? Like, I realize that like trans women get fucked by these things. I also need to be really clear about it, is that right now, AFAB people are the ones that have to deal with this more than anyone. I'm not trying to say we don't have shit to work on. I'm not saying that this is not, that we aren't affected by a host of other stuff. But can people not always make it about them? Everyone is trying to deal with the grief of this because what was a fundamental truth for the last 50 years in their life is now going the fuck away. And you're going to lash out to someone, a sex worker, someone who's directly fucking impacted by this? Are you on crack? The reality of this is that this is going to be devastating to this country. If you are of a class where you can theoretically move, that is an option. But move is not a real thing. That's a stupid comment said by pundits about cartoons and a really, really bad libertarian. The reality is that people are going to be stuck in these states, and some of these states are going to be awful. Offer support, offer mutual aid. If they're able to come across state lines, offer them refuge. Keep your fucking mouth shut, right? Like, the reality of this is that this is going to suck. It's going to hurt. It's going to sting. If any legal experts are watching or watch our content and want to come on at some point and discuss like more of the ramifications of this, a modified Dan Olson quote, "Abortion is a big pretty tree, and when it falls, it shreds its neighbors." True. Everybody take care of one another.
Yep.
Start saving gas money, because when June or July comes up and they put this thing out, if they still do, we're going to have to help people. And I want to make it abundantly clear, you should be protesting outside every one of these 5 justices' houses. Night and day. Be outside of their homes. Chant. Make it abundantly clear that what they are doing is wrong. Make their lives a living hell. Don't engage in violence. Don't harm their property. But yeah, we should be protesting this as hard as we can. All right, guys, see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.
If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, consider donating to us. You can support us on our website, transgirltherapist.org. You can also help us on our Patreon, link below, or you can become a member here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching.